pandemic called COVID-19. And for first 2 3 months, as everybody knows, we all were shut down. Our companies were shut down, and there was no operations. But now we have all understood that livelihood is also important along with our life. And so the economy has, in a way, restarted. All the verticals in the industry have trying to be, trying to recover, and the supply chain which was disrupted at many places is now getting adjusted, getting restored. And I feel that a lot of industries across the board, lot of industry verticals, they have restarted their operations or trying to restart their operations. We are here to discuss the present situation of the mineral and metals industry in specific, and also we would discuss the way ahead. What are the operations which are restored? How we see the future for our industry, and these are the questions we will address. And I would be very happy to introduce our panel to you all. We have very eminent speakers from the industry, very well known. I would like to introduce Mr. Nishan Gulati. Mr. Nishan Gulati, hello, Mr. Gulati. Mr.
Hi,
Gulati is
hi
Chief,
everybody.
yeah, he's Chief Commercial Officer at Radiant Steel. He has more than 27 years of experience in trading of commodities, especially iron ore. So I would be very eager to know about the trading details or how the trading industry is going, recovering from this pandemic from Mr. Gulati. Welcome, Mr. Gulati.
Thank you
Uh,
very much.
we have with us Mr. Mahesh Khetan. Mr. Mahesh Khetan is Vice President and Global Head of Supply Chain Management in Grasim Industries. More than 21 years of experience, and he is the in the managing the supply chain in the countries like Germany, Thailand, USA, China, and India. Is currently takes care of the procurement, logistics, and distribution of about 20 countries. Welcome to Mr. Ketan, and we would like to hear from you regarding the supply chain restoration and disruption, earlier disruption, and now restoration at many places, and how the industry is responding to it. We have with us Mr. L. Pugazanti. I am not able to see Mr. Pugazanti. Is he there? Mr. Pugazanti?
I think he just dropped off.
Oh, anyway, when he comes, I'll introduce him. Of course, everybody knows Mr. Pugazanti. He has been past president of Indian Institute of Metals, and now he is executive director of Sponge and Manufacturers Association of the country. So, welcome, Mr. Pugazanti. I think his video has dropped out, but he will rejoin. And we have with us Miss Amruta Singh. Amruta Singh is the hello Amruta, how are you?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, yeah. She is the director of non-ferrous marketing in the Vedanta Group. Earlier, she was heading marketing of at Hindustan Zinc Limited, and now we would like to hear from her regarding the plight of SMEs. If I'm correct in using my words, plight of SMEs post COVID pandemic. So there are a lot of questions and a lot of hurdles for SMEs to restore their operations and restore their functioning. So I would like to hear from Amruta regarding how the SMEs have, what feature they have in the fold. So with this very eminent panel, we would like to go ahead in our discussion. The first question which I would like to put for the panel is what is the present, very general question, what is the present situation in minerals and metals industry? I would like to start from Mr. Ketan.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure whether you introduced Mr. Mukherjee and Mr. Sunil Pulwal. They are also in the panel.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Mukherjee, definitely. Mr. Shankadeep Mukherjee, I'm very sorry. He's the team leader at CRE Mumbai office and works across the aluminum and steel sector. That is very important for us. And I would like to hear from Mr. Shankadeep regarding the present status of aluminum and steel sector, especially how these sectors are recovering. So welcome, Mr. Shankadeep. And
Thank you.
yeah, Mr. Pulwal also, I would, I actually welcome Mr. Sunil Pulwal, but unfortunately I have not been forwarded your profile. So can you please? introduce
Sure,
yourself.
sure. Thank you, Chanakar. Let me introduce myself
And
quickly. I work for
yeah,
Aditya Birla
please.
Group, and I have worked in Australia heading the copper business there for about 6 years.
Very
And
good.
currently,
Very
I'm
good.
looking after the agri solutions business.
Currently, you are looking
So
after.
great to be here.
You are
Agri
looking after.
solutions business, which is
Okay.
agri
Okay. So
solutions, which is little different than the metals and minerals. But I have
okay.
worked with metals and minerals for long.
Fantastic. So copper business you are very familiar with, and we would like to hear from you what
Yes.
copper people are doing. So let's get back to our first question. What is the situation of metals and minerals industries in the country post-COVID after 7 months? Mr. Ketan,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chandekar, for all the
be
introduction.
precise so that we can address more questions,
Sure,
more issues.
sure. I
Thank
will
you.
try to be as brief and precise as
Thank you.
possible.
Thank
So, I mean, if you just divide this discussion into two parts, one is metals and second is mining. So,
you. Yeah.
metals last 2 or 3 years, the industry had not been having a very healthy growth rate. The global steel
Yeah.
industry has been growing at around 3% in last couple of years, which is almost half of what it was growing in 2017. And this year, when it began, the estimate was also similar growth rate, a lower growth rate. And then the pandemic came in. So the pandemic only accelerated the lowering of the growth rate into the industry, and it came as a shock to the entire industry. So though people were producing it being an essential commodity, but the sale was not happening. So the result was building of a very huge inventory across the industry at a global level. And this happened since July or early August. And from 8 August and September, suddenly the demand started increasing. Particularly in China, the demand went up very high, and China started buying huge quantities. And also the
Okay.
automobile sector in India recovered. The sales of vehicles of major automobile manufacturers in India in September is almost 30% higher than September 2019. So there
Okay.
was a
Okay.
sudden demand in the rural sector, particularly in agriculture, where agricultural vehicles, tractors, and all the sales went up like anything. Also, the infrastructure industry, construction industry started recovering. So September it was a complete turnaround when where people were sitting on very huge inventories till the month of August, and September the demand became so high that the inventory got totally over, and many of the organizations were stocked up.
Okay, that's great. That's great, Mr. Ketan. Shantadeep, what do you think specifically about aluminum and steel? How these industries are recovering?
So I think during the COVID-19 situation, both the steel industry and aluminum industry on the supply side had a lot of advantages because steel is essentially designated as a essential industry. So there was no supply disruption from the steel side. As well, also on the aluminum side, because the process is a continuous operation, there was a dispensation given to continuous operations that they need not stop operations. So there
Yeah.
was steady production on those sides.
So all the
There,
smelters were working, right? In aluminum, all the smelters were working entirely during the COVID period.
yes, there was some reduction in capacity utilization, but more or less they were running at 90-95 capacity
Okay.
utilization.
Okay.
And what happened was there was a demand drop. So that is where India turned to China, and we had exported significant amounts of both steel as well as aluminium to China, as well as iron ore too. Because before COVID 19 hit, there was a lot of concerns in the industry that because of this mining auctions and things like that, there might be iron ore disruptions which might happen in India uh, with the license transfers and things like that, and fleet deployment and MD operators getting deployed. It might take
Yeah.
time, but maybe it was fortunate considering the consider situation where it using the word fortunate is not appropriate, but I think it was fortunate for them that the lockdown came and the demand for the metals in the domestic market came down, and that is why the stockpiles of iron ore was able to be exported out of India during the lockdown period.
So
Right now,
one thing I would like to add, Mr. Shankadeep, we have not exported steel only to China. We have exported to a lot of countries, and China is just one of them. So the steel was, because the domestic demand was less, steel was exported. Export was given emphasis, and we exported to a lot of countries, even European and African countries. UAE we have exported. Hello, I think we have lost Shankadeep. Mr. Kulwal, I would like to ask you what is the situation in copper, briefly.
So, Mr. Pandekar, as the COVID came in, certainly there was an impact initially. Everything, went into hiding. The demand went down.
That's of course the
And,
backdrop. Let's go ahead.
Absolutely. And things have now improved. So when we look at the copper price particularly, during the COVID period, it went down to 2.1.
Hello, Mr. Kulwal. Mr. Kulwal, just a minute. We'll complete our conversation with Mr. Shankadeep. I think we have, he is there.
Okay.
Shankadeep.
yeah. Sorry about that. I'm having a
No, that's okay.
internet.
That's okay. I was just telling you and everybody that we have not exported just to China. We have exported steel to a lot of countries. So China is just one of them. So because the domestic demand was less, we have been able to export, and export demand was there. So because
Yes.
a lot of industries in other countries were not recovered as the industry or the production in India was recovered. So
Correct.
there is still an export demand, and we could export to other countries when our domestic demand was in slack.
China was a
Yeah.
major section of that one because
Yes,
the
yes,
domestic raw material prices in China had actually gone up, so it benefited them to import from India rather than
Yes,
the
yes.
other way around.
Yeah, I know they were always exporting from other countries. Mr. Gulati may be showing more light on that. I will come to you, Mr. Gulati, but first to Mr. Kulwal. Thanks, Sandeep. I will go to Mr. Kulwal. He was telling us about the situation in copper.
Yeah. So, initially the prices went down and the prices are now higher than what it was pre-COVID.
Yes.
Can we suggest that the demand has come back? And China, which had a huge reduction in everything, be it GDP, be it consumption, has bounced back with a particular V-shaped recovery. And today, China in everything has gone much beyond the pre-COVID levels. And China is a major exporter of all, copper and goods.
So let's talk about India. Let's talk about India.
So
how is the production
coming
in
to
India?
So the Indian prices are linked to the global prices in copper. So the prices follow the global trend on a almost real-time basis. So the Indian prices also, which were down in March, April, have gone back pre-March level and beyond that. So the things have improved, and certainly things are looking back very nice now.
Okay, great, Mr. Kulwal. Mr. Gulati, what is your experience in shipping? How are the cargoes now? Increasing?
So, yeah, I mean, just a quick one. So we are mainly involved in iron ore trading business, and as you know, iron ore is a commodity that mainly flows into China. They import more than 1.07 billion tons of iron ore into China every year. They produce the largest amount of steel every year. Last year they produced 996 million tons of steel. So they produce 58% of the world's steel, and hence the import iron ore is extremely high, and that is what governs the iron ore prices in the entire industry, because they are the largest importers of iron ore. So, iron ore side, the production last year was low from Brazil, but this year has recovered a lot. That after the COVID struck in February and March this year, Chinese steel production did come off significantly in February and March, and thereafter, April onwards, there has been a very, very sharp recovery in steel production in China. So at the time in March, people were thinking that China's steel production will be lower than last year, but February and March were very low production figures. By the end of August, in the last 8 months now, China has produced 4% more steel than they did last year. Now,
great.
Considering China's base production is almost 1 billion tons a year, 4 is actually a big number. It is the kind of number which other countries don't even produce. So they has recuperated very fast, and this is largely to do with a very strong policy by the government to give stimulus to the steel and infrastructure and retail and automobile industry, which has shown a lot of recovery in the last few months. If you look at the demand for steel, it has been so high, like Shankardeep mentioned as well, that steel has been imported out of India, imported from India in China. The import in China, although in the first 8 months, is only about 13 million tons, but 60% more than last year. And China's exports of steel in the first 8 months is actually 20% less than last year.
I know.
You can see that they are producing 4% more steel. They are importing 60% more steel, and they're exporting 20% less steel. That means their internal demand has gone up tremendously. And the iron ore imports are also up very, very much. By the end of August, they had imported 55 million tons of more iron ore as compared to last year. So overall, from the pre-COVID levels, like already mentioned, China is actually surpassing, just like in copper, on the iron steel side as well. They are higher than last year now.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. I would we have a fairly good idea about now trading of iron ore, especially to China. But panelists, let me remind you, we are talking about the situation in India. So let us focus our discussion around Indian minerals and metals industry. With this, I would like to go to Amrita Singh. Amrita, sorry for coming last to you, but I hope you will be the best. And I would like to ask you especially about the SME sector, because a lot of non-ferrous metals and lot of which we are dealing goes to SMEs for further processing, rolling, or further roll forming, whatever is the process. So SMEs, as we know, is the backbone of any country's economy. So with this, I would like to have your comments on how the SMEs are reacting to post-COVID situation and how do you see them in the future. Amrita Singh.
Yeah, well, for us in Hindustan, for zinc as a metal, MSME is a very important segment for us because zinc is actually a second metal. Second as in it goes along with, say, aluminium, it goes along with copper. So it is a second metal, that's what we say. And most of this, the demand of this segment is driven by the MSME segment. And I'd like to also place here that, as a country, the MSME segment is, while we contribute of almost 30% to the GDP, the MSME segment, but at the same time, we are much below the global average. We feel that there is a very strong need for government impetus on this segment, and of late we have seen that government has announced a lot of packages for this segment per se. And certainly the demand across this segment for us has been good. It's actually recovered to pre-COVID levels. That is what I would say. It started happening around July, I would say, much earlier than other segments. But yes, the sector is still battling with a lot of issues around liquidity. We still see our customers and the segment struggling for credit from the banking channels and the the NBFC channels, etc. That is the state. But we are also doing our bit for this segment because of late we have announced certain measures by which we can support the sector, because this is a big customer segment for us as well. And for that, some of those include how to leverage, our position in getting channel financing for this sector. Also, we have launched a digital platform called Evolve, which facilitates the ease of doing business with this segment. So that's what we are. That's the manner in which we are contributing towards this sector. But yes, it is recovering. That's the bottom line. That's what. This is the view that we carry.
Yeah. As I said earlier, thank you very much, Amrita. As I said earlier, SME is the backbone of any country's economy. So is the case of our country. So I feel that my personal view on this is SMEs, it is far more difficult for any SME unit to recover from this situation because financing is a problem, demand restoration is a problem, and even getting back the labor which has migrated is a problem. So for SME, the problems are numerous. So I would like Mr. Khetan or anybody else who is in the manufacturing can comment on it. Or Mr. Pulwar, starting with Mr. Khetan.
Yeah, SME is definitely a very important part of the whole industry. As you rightly mentioned, majorly the migrant laborers. During the pandemic and the lockdown, the migrant laborers left to their hometown and they are slowly coming back. So that has certainly impacted the manufacturing activity as well as the logistics activity. Because the drivers also left and then many of them did not return. So there was an issue with the logistics, the road transportation, as well as there were issues in ocean transportation for export and import. Ocean was impacted because of heavy congestion at some ports. Now the logistics industry also rerouted their shipment, their vessels. Considering the fact that the ports where the higher volume is there, they rerouted the vessels there and left the bypassed the ports like ports in India during that time, having lots of regulations and not having much volume. So that definitely disrupted the complete logistics, including the ocean and the road transportation. SME is also impacted because of the cash flow, the working capital, the credit period. So there are regulations in India that you cannot have more than 45 days of credit period with SME. During this, the force majeure.
It will be declared as NPA.
Yeah. And force majeure was declared by many organizations and credit period were extended. So some kind of support in terms of financing the SMEs by banks with higher credit period, buying the LCs and all.
I'll come to that. But you think that more or less the logistic disruption which has happened is more or less corrected? That's what is your
not yet. I think it will take another 2 months. By December, it might get corrected when the Christmas holidays and New Year holidays kick in across the world.
Okay. And Mr. Kulwal, what is your experience in copper manufacturing?
So, Mr. Chandekar, SME is the backbone of any economy, as Amrita and Mahesh both have stated. So I completely agree with them. The challenge for the SMEs is that minerals and commodities are having a roller coaster ride. So it's going, up and down and up. And that makes their life really difficult, that how do they manage this roller coaster ride without impacting their own profitability. And I think that's the biggest challenge what a small or even medium-sized manufacturer will always face. It is therefore important that how do they manage that risk of price, because the raw material prices moves independent of finished goods price most of the time. There is a time lag which comes into play, and if the time lag is not managed well, it can have a huge negative impact on the profitability of MSME. And development requires use of right tools, right practices. That becomes extremely critical and important for them.
Mr. Kulwal, tell me, is not hedging and the forward trading the answer for all this? I would say fluctuations.
So you are so right, Mr. Chandekar. Hedging is an important area which the MSME needs to be educated about. Many people may do it, may not do it, but when the copper prices moves from $6,000 to $4,000 and again to $6,500, so someone who have bought and not sold, he can have a huge problem. Now the challenge is, when the MSME do not have the required either limits with the commodity player or with the banks, because everything requires upfront payment, or if they do not know the process of doing it, then there is a problem. Many times they also take a view ki okay, to chalo koi baat nahi, I'll take a view ki price ghata jayega. It's good that if it, but if it is not, then that can have a huge impact. and therefore this risk management in commodity is
becomes a very
extremely
big area
important,
now.
and we are extremely vulnerable to that. And therefore, manage positions, hedging, even options trading, or whatever one is buying, selling, the similar quantum in NCDEX, that becomes extremely important.
I know.
And
made for trouble times, isn't it, Mr. Kulwal?
When you talk about copper, zinc,
made for these trouble times only. Okay, Mr. Shankadeep, you
right.
like to say anything on this? Yeah, thank you. Shankadeep, you want to say something on this, or shall I move on to the next question?
I'd just like to add that from what I understand, speaking to the market, and that's essentially that's CRU being a market research organization. That's what we do. It's that because of the secondary lockdowns, even though there is no major lockdown from the government level, from the central government level, there are localized lockdowns which are actually preventing the many of these smaller players from operating at full stream, and they are also unable to both place order or look for orders from either side. So that is definitely an area of concern.
Tell me one thing. I mean, the whole panel can respond. I just have a thought that is it not the time earlier you were saying that our supply chain management has to be a global one, right, Mr. Ketan? I am importing one raw material from China, other from US, third from Europe, and fourth from Southeast Asia. But now, has COVID taught us that our supply chain management should be in the local area? Supply chain, I mean, raw materials procurement should be from the local area. Are we moving towards that thinking?
Actually, the entire risk matrix which was prevailing pre-COVID is scrapped now. The totally new risk matrix has been created by the organizations.
Yes. So I feel that I am more secured if my raw materials are coming, from within 100 kilometers from my factory.
Yeah, I believe the dependency on China was there. Some organizations it was less, some organizations it was very high. But dependency was definitely there on China. And
why only China? Other countries for that matter.
Yeah. So the geographical spread was felt as a need and was perceived as a very high risk. Focused on a particular geography, either to procure the raw material or even to sell your finished goods as a market. Geographical.
Yeah, maybe it is time to become Atmanirbhar, as our Prime Minister says.
But there's a long way to go for that. I mean, there are many things which are not yet manufactured in India. So
I know. I would take opinion from Mr. Gulati. From trading front, how do you see the whole situation, sir?
Actually, like I mentioned, after the first couple of months, February, March, tough months, the market has shown tremendous recovery. If you look at the international iron ore prices, they were about $80 back then, and they are close to $120 now. So the iron ore prices are up by 50% through the year. So for the trading perspective, it has not been bad because the demand created was very high. And the raw material price is also very good. So in this kind of raw material environment price scenario, the steel mills have done, the miners have done very well. Their margins have been excellent. And whereas the steel demand has made sure that the steel mills have also maintained their margins somewhat, although their margins are down now since the iron ore prices have gone up so much. They still have reasonable margins. So when the steel mills are making money, who are the end producers, and the miners are making a lot of money at the moment because iron prices are extremely high, then there is always a margin to be made for the trading community as well in between. So it has a win-win situation for all, but it's something which may not last for too long because the Chinese government will put a stimulus to stimulate the economy in a market like this, but they may not continue to do it for a very long time because that creates a big in the economy.
Yeah. In fact, I would like to add here that of all the industry verticals, we are very fortunate that steel and metals vertical or metallurgical vertical has recovered the fastest. Most of the disruptions have been restored, and demand. The most important thing is demand mostly has been restored.
It is pretty much the backbone of the economy, right? So
obviously. So I would now come to the next question. Somebody was talking about the stimulus. you all will remember that Indian government few months back, I think 1 or 2 months back, had announced a 20 lakh rupees 20 lakh crore stimulus to the industry. Out of that, 6.5 lakh crores was especially for MSME. So how do you see at this? And can you tell us how the industry has been benefited from this stimulus? Mr. Ketan?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of infrastructure, investment in infrastructure from the government as well as from MSMEs, we can see some improvement over there, and that's how the demand went up in the construction industry as well as in the vehicles, automobiles industry. So, automobiles does not just mean cars; it's also two-wheelers, it is also tractors.
Yeah, and the whole supply, I would say auxiliaries.
So as the vehicles production increase, that supports the automobile industry, supports so many industries, right? From steels to chemicals to paint to everything. So that gives a big boost to the economy. So it has certainly helped, and I think another some reforms were announced a couple of weeks back. So that will also help in the infrastructure development.
Definitely. Mr. Amruta, what is your experience? Especially about MSMEs, about this stimulus package from the government.
No, I think the stimulus package, on the face of it, it is a very good package, and we see the sector at least for the metals we deal in, with zinc, aluminium. The demand is increasing from this segment of our customers, which generally reflects a positive mood there. But yes, the liquidity crunch still remains. We see people struggling from the banking channels, even from the second tier banking channels, they do struggle. So I think with time this should translate into at the ground level, and we should be seeing much better benefits. But yes, the industry is certainly surprising us in terms of the demand uptick.
Have there been increases in shipment from India post this stimulus announcements?
Yes, well, I mean, the shipments from India on the iron ore side have definitely gone up. And iron ore exports this year are, running at almost, 2 million tons a month, which is almost double of what it was last year. So iron ore shipments have increased tremendously. Like I said, China's imports have gone up, and that has meant that iron ore exports from India have gone up, and the margins have been very good for the iron ore miners in India and the traders as well. And especially iron ore pellet exports have gone up from India as well. So JSPL and BRPL and all those pellet producers have been selling pellets into China, and pellet prices have been reasonably good as well. And by the end of the year that we are in now, pellet demand will go up even higher because it will be winter season now, and the Chinese concentrate production, which is the iron ore that they produce, goes down tremendously during winter time. So right now, the prices will be very high. So it's
yes. Mr. Gulati, it may be good from the commodity trading point of view, but for overall economy, I don't think exporting of raw materials or exporting of semi-finished products may be as perceived as a good thing in the overall economy, because we would like to export more and more value-added products.
Absolutely, it makes perfect sense.
It's not a very happy situation where we are exporting raw materials and where we are exporting semi-finished product like pellets.
Yeah, but just to put it in perspective, the iron ore that India exports is all low-grade iron ore, which is not usually.
Of course, I know. Minus 60, I believe.
Yeah, it's under 58. Under 58.
Minus 58. Minus 58. Okay, Mr. Shankarji, how do you think industry has responded to this stimulus of 20 lakh crores from the government? It's more than 2 months now. So how do you think the industry has responded?
So I think, as in any case, the devil is always in the details. So if you look at the stimulus measures very carefully, you'll see a lot of that was actually in the form of credit measures rather than direct fiscal stimulus. So if somebody is eligible for a loan and somebody takes that loan to make that spending, then the government would step in and guarantee that, which definitely gives some comfort to the bankers to lend that loan. But as I was mentioning, without persistent demand recovery being visible, there are many people, and with secondary lockdowns and localized lockdowns, there is significant uncertainty in the market on people coming in and making major investments to go in and take facilities of those loans to see a significant impact as of now. It's definitely a very good step. Supply side disruption would definitely have been stopped because or any decimation of the supply side would have been stopped because of those credit measures. But I think the demand stimulus needs to be also there for this credit facilities to actually work.
So how do you think that demand stimulation? Nobody has found that answer. How to give stimulus to demand? So if you have any suggestions?
So there is a.
So I think
I agree with Mr. Mukherjee. So to increase demand, like there are sales which are coming from those major Amazons and Flipkarts. I think it's time that okay, for this 1 year, we will reduce the GST rate on these particular items to say 0. Going to kickstart the demand. People will go watch it and not buying. They will go tough. And that demand generation will really help the economy to get into a circular move. So I think it will be a good idea for people that look, rather than only giving solutions and extending
In some of the other countries, there is the salaries of the employees were credited directly to the account of the company. So such direct measures, I think our government has not done. In case of farming, if the farming is in problem, they give direct credit to the farmers. So why not to the industry?
When it is in problem. I'll give an example of Australia. In Australia, the people who have lost their jobs, the government came out with a package whereby the 70% of the salary of the employee has hired 7% of the new hire salaries were given by the government for 6-month period. And that way the employer got employees and the employees got money to spend, whereby the entire economy was kept running. And government has to do something like that.
So I don't think we can expect such direct credit to our salary account from the government, but that seems very, very, very unlikely.
That's where this GST can be a good idea, whereby the government comes out, okay, for 1 month period, let it be specific time bound that we are giving GST waiver for this period, whereby people will go and start buying things.
That's a good suggestion, Shankardeep. Yes, I think. So now I want to ask you the next question. Like, how do you see the future? There are two parts to it. Maybe a short-term future and a long-term future. I am saying I am pretty convinced about a long-term future about our country. So I think everybody will be on the same note. If there are other issues, please let us know. Otherwise, we would like to discuss about, say, future of next 6 months to 1 year. And I would start with Mr. Gulati first. How do you see, sir? Well, from your industry perspective, you tell me.
Yes.
No need to, cover the whole industry spectrum. You see your spectrum and tell us.
Sure. I'm not that much involved in the SME sector in India as such. So, from where I see, I think, like I said, a lot of strong stimulus was provided in the market. Not only in India, but in other countries as well. And that's why the demand for raw materials, especially iron ore, has been extremely strong. But I don't see this kind of stimulus to continue for too much longer. Like I said, there is a fear that a bubble may be created, and then there will be a sharp sell-off. And that is something that no government wants, right? So they want to stimulate, but at the same time, they want to taper it off slowly to make sure that there is no sharp sell-off or a sharp fall in demand, right? So I feel that what they have done now is that majority of the stimulus that the Chinese government needed to give is going to be given till the 31st of October this year. and then you will see a very quiet November and December, and thereafter, in the first quarter of next year, again there will be some stimulus measure coming in. So they're going to ease off a little bit. They don't want to continuously pump in the money. Every province has been allotted bonds for every month of the year till 31st of October. They're asked to use up all their quota. They will slow down a little bit by the end of the year, especially because by the end of quarter 4, all the money needs to go back to the banking institutions as well, and the new loans start in the first quarter of next year. So I believe that the markets will kind of take a breather in the last 2 months of the year, and then from quarter 1 onwards, there will be some more stimulus, but more measured stimulus, not as strong as this year.
Okay. And obviously, the whatever steps China will follow, the whole world will. China is today
they drive
giant in the metal trade.
They are driving the commodity prices of.
Absolutely. Yes. I totally agree. Mr. Khetan, what would be your comment?
Yeah, I think the current surge in demand is artificial, created artificially by some industries through planned shutdowns of their capacities. Typically, if you talk about next 6 months or 1 year, typically during the December, as more than half of the world is shut due to Christmas and New Year, the demand goes down in December. So the current high demand may continue till November. It may go down in December, and every year because of the Chinese New Year in February, the whole of China is shut for 50 days in February. So January they start stocking up, and the prices and demand go up in the month of January. So January we might see some strong prices and demand strong again. From February onwards it goes down. That's a traditional year after year the same thing happens, and then after whatever the industry predicts, it's 4.5% of growth at a CAGR level for next 4 years. I think that will become a normal way of life.
Just I would like to add that IMF has predicted 10% downsizing of Indian economy, GDP reduction by 10%, and in next year it will again go up about 7.5. That is what they are saying.
Yeah.
Do you subscribe to that theory?
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst is over. So whatever the loss of GDP was going to happen for India, it already happened. 1 year after it is only the growth. So naturally, if you compare growth next year versus this year, it's going to be significantly higher.
So in a way, we can say that we are bottomed out now.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kulwal, what is your take?
So let me quote Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, who said COVID has got no expiry date. That's the unfortunate fact of life. And that poses, a picture that whatever we are seeing in COVID is the worst behind us, or are we going to see again, another wave coming and taking us by a surprise? The good news is people are now, about COVID much better than what we knew about 6 months back. We know how it's going to spread, how do we contain it. Now it's being found less deadly. So the initial shock, which we saw in March, April, that is show. Stimulus has provided us a good way to demand and move forward and take care of this very bad period. So I believe going forward, the worst is behind us. The demand generation which have now started, what we are seeing in almost all segments, be it steel, be it cement, be it chemicals, be it vehicles, everywhere we are seeing the surge in demand. And that demand surge has to continue, and government has to ensure that the demand is there. People come and spend money rather than, taking a back seat and not spending money. And if that cycle is continued, and even if we have a second wave, which may come because we are seeing a second wave coming in Europe, Americas, and India, of course, we are seeing a lot of, going down. But even if the second wave comes, if we keep on spending, then there is no reason that why next year we cannot grow back to 5 to 7% growth and, really surprise the world positive. So I'm very positive, and I'm very clear that India is going to emerge as a big victorious in this entire scheme of things. People are now, saying that, okay, China, we should buy less, we should buy more from, non-China alternatives. And in that entire scheme of things, India has got a role to play. It has to rise to the occasion, and it must become not an alternate China, but the India which is the entire world in meeting all their almost demands.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kulwal. I would go to Amrita Singh. And Amrita, what do you think about SMEs? What is the future? Say 6 months down the line. Oh, you lost her. Anyway, Shankadeep, I would like to you to answer this, and I would like you to answer this in more, I would say, elaborate way. How do you see the future of the industry in next 6 months? I am sure CRU must be doing a lot of research in such uh, forward forecasting and all that. So I would
Thank you.
like to
That's actually
respond
a very pertinent question that we are getting from everybody.
yeah,
And as a result, we have gone back and looked at all the recessions since the
yeah,
1929 recessions. And the one thing that stands out with this current year recession is this is a health crisis recession, unlike all the other recessions, which was at some point of time or other was due to a financial crisis or
okay,
something. So that is why we think the recovery in most of the end use sectors would be usually faster than what we have seen in the previous recessions. So
okay,
things
that's a
like
good point. Yeah,
manufacturing, constructions, these would
yeah,
be recovering normally faster than typical. The key
okay,
exception, and I think this people might disagree with me over here, is the key exception which will take a long time to recover is the automotive sector, and that
why?
has not to do with COVID-19. It has to do with the emission challenges which is already
Oh yeah.
prevalent even
Hmm.
before COVID-19 started.
Yes, yes.
So I know people are saying September sales, September production this year was much higher than 2019, but my argument is 2019 is
You are
not a
right.
comparable year.
Absolutely. In
2019,
2019 also auto recession was there.
exactly. So, and
Absolutely.
that
You are
was
right.
primarily because of the emission challenges, and that is something
Yeah.
which has been accelerated much
Hmm.
more because of COVID-19. So that is the key thing which we need to consider. So even though the vehicle production has increased, the vehicle sales have increased somewhat, registration levels are not to that level. So that indicates to me that there is a significant inventory buildup ahead of the festivity seasons
Yes.
right now. So unless that takes that is really sells, those inventory really sells in the festivity season, people, unless consumers have those confidence in themselves that it's okay, I don't need to save up money for a rainy day, things might recover soon,
Yeah.
they, unless that spending comes in, we will possibly again see a downturn in the
Okay.
demand.
Okay. So generally, you are positive about a 6 month recovery time, or say post 1 year down the line, your industry would be very comfortable. You feel?
Yeah, I think in the 1 year or after 1 year or so, definitely it will be a better, much better situation than now. The key risk is how the vaccine production takes place and how
Okay.
quickly the vaccine can be produced and how quickly the vaccine can be certified and distributed. Keep in mind, there are 7 billion people in the
Yeah.
entire world, and vaccinating all of them will take a significant amount of time, and you need to produce the vaccine also before that. So the
Hmm.
how the vaccine production takes place is
Hmm.
also going to determine how the entire demand structure as and the industry recovery takes will do.
Hmm. I know, and vaccine that too in so many numbers. I mean, reaching vaccine, taking vaccine to all the population of the country itself is a very big challenge, isn't it, Mr. Khetan? You
Yeah,
are you are you are worked in you
yeah,
are
well,
worked in
it,
supply chain management. This
it
is
will be a
a
supply chain
very perfect
nightmare
example.
to,
Yes, this
and
supply chain is going to be
I
the
hope the kind of vaccine they produce does not require refrigerated transport. Otherwise, it will become even more.
otherwise it will be a problem. Yeah. Now I would like to go to Amrita. Amrita, I am sorry again. I am coming to you in the last, but it is we want to discuss SME sector in detail. So you please give your elaborate answer. How do you see the future of SMEs in for the next 6 months, say 6 months down the line? So, in fact, I would like to have everybody's comment on SME because, as I told you, SME forms the backbone of any economy. So is the case of India. So we should all be more concerned about the future of SME comparatively. So, Amrita, please start your answer.
So, and before just going to SMEs, I think I'd like to also share my view on how we see zinc, aluminum, and other non-ferrous metals as a whole.
Please.
So,
Yeah.
the thing is that demand uptake is certainly there, but I share others' views also that we need to wait and watch, because for non-ferrous metals also, if we see the fundamentals, if we see globally, are not so strong. Whereas India is showing good signs of recovery. On the lines, it's showing good lines of recovery. But the thing is that going forward, how is it going to be? Because right now we see also this demand a little permanent, a little temporary in nature. And
why you?
yeah,
Why you?
yeah. And the key is also, I mean, one point I want to highlight here is also regarding the imports. I think that is something which we also need to see as a nation, because if we see non-ferrous metals, we are self-reliant when it comes to production. But when it comes to imports, they are continuously on a surge. So, which I feel the government will necessarily define how end of the day.
Amrita, you were mentioning something.
How we are seeing.
Amrita, you were mentioning something about FTA.
Yes. So FTA times are very dynamic now. So what I feel is that when we see imports, largely we normally talk about China as an exporting nation to us, but also we have to see what kind of imports are actually coming us even from the FTA regions, whether they're actually making sense for us as a country or not in today's time. That's something we need to review. I believe a lot of government quarters are taking up reviews around this, and things are progressing. But that's something which is a space we need to closely monitor, closely watch. And I feel that also will define how the future looks for us.
I would just like to add here that we have FTA, free trade agreements, with many countries, and it is a good sign. We have to build relationships with other countries, but unfortunately, what happens? Most of these FTAs are I would not say politically motivated, but political in nature, because we want to create good relations with that country. Nothing wrong in that, but in many of these cases, the particular industry is not taken into confidence. Like for non-ferrous metals, I can say for copper or for zinc also, lot of these metals in directly or indirectly coming to our country. As I think Amrita was mentioning the same thing, because we have FTAs with these countries, we cannot charge import duty. So to that extent, their material in our country, imported material in our country, becomes cheaper than our domestically produced commodity. So FTA, though it is good for political understanding and relationship, industry must argue with the government that the particular industry has to be taken into confidence before doing such FTAs. So that is what my point. Mr. Khetan, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, the ministry does take the inputs from the industry to organizations like FICCI and CII.
But they are not reflected in FTA.
Yeah.
Certain commodities can be kept out of FTA.
I would say, as far as FTAs are concerned, India is far behind other countries. We need to sign many more FTAs to improve the economy and to reduce the import of expenditure on import as a part of GDP.
So, yeah, but that will have a very negative impact on SMEs. Now let Amrita continue with this SME response. Isn't it? Amrita, you respond to my argument also.
No, absolutely. In fact, I would just like to share, across non-ferrous metals, we are we are self-sufficient when it comes to domestic production as an industry. So when I say this, it's not just about Vedanta. As an industry, we are self-sufficient when a surgeon. And yes, the government takes inputs from us and talks, discussions, keeps happening on various public forums. So we feel that something will be there around this. But coming to MSME segment, it is going on right now. I feel it will sustain for probably the next couple of months for sure. Until December, we see it sustaining like this. Beyond this, we also feel that it may be temporary in nature because the fundamentals need to support. And for the MSME segment, the credit availability to this segment is going to be extremely important, as I said earlier also. So it depends how much of the package which have been recently announced by the government actually flows or trickles down to this segment. I think that's going to be the thing which every one of us has to be watchful about. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, the confidence is there, but the implementation and reaching the grassroots level, trickling down to the SMEs, I think that's the piece. It will evolve over time. I feel very positive around this. It may take maybe 1 or 2 months or maybe a little
6 months
more
down the
than
line,
that,
how do you see
but
the
it will
future?
eventually come.
You think MSME will be in a better shape than now?
Yes, I think so. Within 6 months, I feel definitely it will be in better shape. We will be past the conditions we were maybe 3 months back, and we will resume our. We will
That's
get
good. Mr.
normalized. I
Purwar,
think.
how do you see
In
the
the
copper
next
industry
time.
future?
So the industry's future of copper is certainly bright. There is no doubt about that because copper is the basic metal which is being used in almost everything, be it cars, be it vehicles, be it electricity, be it applications. So the copper future is bright. But coming to your important question about the MSME future, the Indian entrepreneurship is, I think, amongst the best in the world. And our entrepreneurs, our MSME sector is certainly, great not only employment provider, but also a great contributor to the economy. Having said that, they also have a lot of, headwinds coming to them, not only because of COVID, but also because of other government policies. Like, when we look at the import duty structure, you talked about the FTA. FTA is one. But otherwise also there are a lot of laws in the duty structure that the raw materials duty is higher than that of finished goods. And that would mean from the countries with whom we have got FTA, we will import stuff at much lesser duty than the raw material which is being imported because it is not available in India. And the industry uses raw material to produce finished goods. So when we talk about MSME future, we need to make certain corrective measures at policy level. One, all inverted duty, make duty raw material least, semi-finished goods higher, and finished goods highest, so that we, produce more in India, become Atmanirbhar. That is one. Second, liquidity, for MSME, which is the very, very important in order for them to keep their wheels moving, is under tremendous stress. You go and talk to, small player, and every small player talks about कि ग्राहक की नहीं है, पैसा नहीं है, market में liquidity नहीं है, and that is something the government has given a huge measure, but I think more needs to be done so that the MSME sector is not deprived of the required liquidity. And third, which is going to be the most important amongst all, how do we really create demand for MSME sector particularly, because MSME sectors make small things, and today people have stopped going to the market. They are going less and less to the market. So how do we make huge rural population where the earning growth is good, demand is there, and we have the full logistics to ensure that the rural population start buying the material. and the demand overall gets generated. Once we have done these three, there is no question that the MSME is going to be great. The Indian entrepreneurs are the best amongst the world entrepreneurs, and they certainly have a great future. And 6 months down the line, if you ask, I think they will certainly have a much better future.
Okay, sure. Okay, that's good, Mr. Kulwal. So we are almost at the end of this panel discussion. Very interesting panel discussion we had. Just last question. COVID has taught us many things. COVID has made us change our business model. COVID has made us, change our thinking. Like I can cite example of hotels. Now hotels are more giving emphasis on takeaways, and there are a lot of sites like Zomato and Swiggy which have come in the picture. These businesses were not there earlier. So this COVID has evolved many businesses, many changed perceptions of the entrepreneurs. So what changes had COVID done in our industry? Anybody? I mean, this is not the question. I will go around everybody. So anybody wants to respond to this can surely respond. What changes COVID has induced in us as far as our business is concerned? So, Amrita.
Yeah, so I'm very passionate about this. That is why I raised my hand first. So for us,
first finger.
So in Hindustan Zinc, it's a very special time for us because we launched our first ever e-commerce platform for our customers. So this is the first time across the globe, in fact, in non-ferrous segment, that metal will be available like an Amazon-like experience. Across 4 clicks, somebody can come and buy metal. We are very excited, very passionate. We launched this on 18th of September. So that changed for us. So we are going for non-ferrous metals. That's what has changed for us.
But how is the response?
So if 4 clicks, metal. Just slight bit of network issue.
But how is the response? I asked.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. At least you can go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we are finding very good response. Yeah, so we are finding actually quite good response in our, which is the first one. And we've seen about 100 plus customers connecting with us who could not directly buy from us earlier through this platform. So that's the change we are trying to bring in.
Very, 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 very good. So after fastest finger first, anybody? Second finger?
I think something similar for us also. So we have been able to move a lot of our deliveries online, the way we deliver content to our customers. So we recently completed our CRU breakfast, which is an annual event. So up till last year, it used to be a physical event in London. This year, we moved it to a virtual event. So I think last year it was around 300 participants, and this year we had around 800 participants logging in virtually from around 60 countries. So
that's great.
That virtual delivery has given a much more. It has impacted certain parts of the business, but it has also opened up much more new avenues.
New opportunities.
Which just needs to be explored appropriately.
Yeah. In our conference profession or in our journal magazine profession also, we have shifted to digital format. And we find that the reach has increased manifold. Mr. Kulwal, you had raised the finger.
So, the online is going to be the future for almost everything. People have now, enjoyed that, being online, be it conference, be it doing meetings with, people, or even, nowadays, even the meetings with the government officers and ministers, they are agreeing to have meeting online. And they do not say, we will not be. That's a very positive outcome. And it has taught us a lot of, new things. In spite of, earlier people said, how one can work from home. And we have seen now people working from home for almost, more than 5-6 months, and very productive.
And working very
All
effectively.
businesses
Working very effectively.
Very, very effectively. In fact, the balance sheet finalization have been done sitting home. Audit have been done sitting home by the auditor. It's a positive thing. Coming to copper specifically, COVID is going to make because people are now talking about COVID impregnated masks, saying that that's going to kill the virus when the virus comes in contact with copper. It's going to kill it. So a lot of things are going to happen. So COVID has taught us a lot of things, and a very positive outcome: less pollution in the cities.
Yes. So, Mr. Khetan, what is your comment? Last comment, 2-3 sentences, not more than that.
We could sign some very large contracts for purchase of commodities through online discussion and online meetings. Last year, for signing contract, similar contract, I had to travel to 4 countries. This year, when we travel anywhere, we could talk and sign the contracts. So the things have changed.
Yeah, Mr. Gulati, what is your comment? Last comment, 2 sentences.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like everybody else, all the meetings are pretty much on Zoom calls or WebEx. These days, all the long-term contracts are signed, after having a virtual discussion. There are no conferences. Industry conferences are a very important part of our business. We've been doing it online and meeting our customers online regularly. And that's how it is going. Although the documentation process is pretty much normal, a lot of our staff is working from home. They're continuing to manage to work effectively. They put printers at home, scanners at home. So able to do it all quite operationally perfectly, actually.
I know. So that is how the industry has changed because of COVID. And thanks everybody for such an intense and such an elaborate discussion. Thank you. I would like to say thanks to everybody personally, Mr. Gulati, Mr. Shankadeep, Mr. Kulwal, Mr. Khetan, Ms. Amrita. We have all discussed this subject from whatever all angles I feel. From all angles we could, and I hope we have given a good perspective about metals and minerals industry in the country and the future of this industry in India. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hand over the mic to Mr. Khandelwal.